Welcome back, Tribe. I have an interesting discussion here.
Feminism or gender equality has influenced sexual dynamics. I'll tell you why I asked it, because it's one of the chapters in your book from, was it 17 years ago or something, talks about how some of America's best features, the belief of democracy, equality, consensus building, compromise, fairness, and mutual tolerance can, when carried to...
punctiliously.
I'm so glad you knew what word you'd written, because I had no idea how to say that word. Into the bedroom, result in very boring sex.
Yes. Sex is not always politically correct. Sometimes we demonstrate during the day
consent
against the very same things that we delight at night. If it's playful, if it's consensual, if it's voluntary.
That feels like a contradiction.
Do you understand? But so do children. Children play prisoners, and children play firemen and victims and doctors and patients. They understand that when they play, they enter a universe of as if. Nobody wants to be pinned down.
And tied up.
For real. as in against their will.
Yeah.
In a situation,
non-consensually.
Non-consensually, and without the meaning that says this is for pleasure, this is for connection, this is for surrender, this is for this very powerful ritual. When kids are tying each other up because they are the prisoners, they are not tolerating it because they know that they are in the realm of play, as if, make believe. And it gives it the fun and then the wholly different meaning. Nobody wants to be trapped when it becomes real. If you play hide and seek, the most amazing thing is when you're hiding is to know that somebody's looking for you. But the minute you begin to wonder, are they still looking for you? The thrill turns into terror. This is what happens in sex too. It's extremely important to differentiate when it is sexual, when it's a form of play, when it's a particular practice you enjoy. And everything around it is coming together to clarify that.
But are you seeing couples struggling, though, with these sort of newly defined gender roles as it relates to their sex lives? And as we said, like feminism and the equality of the sexes and all that.
Yes, the insane hoops you have to jump through with consent. You have to ask for consent before and multiple times during. They want you to write this down on paper now. You have to get it signed just to save your ass and make it ironclad in the kangaroo courts of, college campuses. You're also expected as a man to read a woman's mind and know what she wants, which we know that no doesn't always mean no. And yes doesn't always mean yes, but you're supposed to make this distinction as a man, because if you don't and you want to get this written on paper or you cross the wrong line, then that's your ass also. Yet they tell you that communication is key, but don't want to communicate this to you overtly because you're a man, you're supposed to know this. It's actually unattractive. It turns them off if you don't. So when you try to communicate and get the consent they ask for, it turns them off. When you do things instinctually as a man, and the no doesn't always mean no, because if you have any bedroom experience, you understand. Playful no's, then that's attractive. Yet society tells men that the moment you hear no, period, you need to stop dead in your tracks just to be safe. Yet that turns women off. It is more confusing today than it's ever been because we muddied the gender roles, because this insane expectation placed on one side to know all the rules, to read minds, and deal with all the consequences, all wrapped into one. Yet the other side tells you that you're the one that's bad at communication. Man, oh man, if I were to give advice to men today, especially in the political climate we're in, the moment you hear no, even if it's a playful one, just back away from the situation. You can't take the risk. Unless that's your girlfriend of multiple years and you guys have a little role play going on and you know what you're doing and you understand each other very well, that's different. Otherwise, walk away, man. It's not worth it. It just takes, we've seen it many times. One accusation lobbied your way, untruthfully, and you will get ruined. You get hung out to dry in the public square. People will absolutely destroy your reputation. Your friends will look at you differently. Your family looks at you differently. They get to remain anonymous. You get dragged through the mud and paraded around the city square. It's insane. It's not worth it, at least in the West. You can still act like a regular man and a regular woman and expect to have some fun in the bedroom without this consent forms and all this crazy shit going on college campuses and other parts of the world, I'm sure. But here in the West, where we have radicalization of the fourth wave gynocracy, where every single little thing is your fault as a man. You're an enemy, you're a predator, it's the patriarchy oppressing them, all this stuff, it's not in your favor, especially with the kangaroo courts. Don't risk it. Don't risk it, dude. How many more guys have to have their empires crumbled, their dreams crushed simply over one piece of poon? Don't do it. See what happens? Chasing Instagram tail and hookups and one night stands and all that will destroy your empire today as a man. That's a guy's greatest weakness today, women. Seriously. If you think about how to destroy your enemy, your competition, a man in general, you do it through women today. All you have to do is get one, drag his name in the mud. In the climate we have today, not that believable if the guy's famous. We understand that women are trying to get something out of men. But then you tack on another 2, 3, 4. It's game over, dude. That's it. You are guilty in the eyes of the public. You don't even have to go to court. So watch your ass, man. It's almost better today if you're a man, God-fearing man, on the straight and narrow. You're just after your business and building your legacy to just get a stable, long-term relationship or getting married. Not in the West because the laws are messed up. But to have a wife today protects you against a lot of this shit. Imagine, Joe Rogan's one example. They went after him with the racism card, but they couldn't go after him with like being a sexual deviant or anything. Dude's been married. The way they just did Russell Brand, false accusations. Again, anonymous, no proof, not even police investigations. Wild, right? Andrew Tate, same thing. Who knows what's going on with his court case and the evidence they have and all that stuff, but it's getting dragged out nonstop. Interesting, right? What happens when you engage in these, frivolous activities with these streetwalkers off of Instagram, man? That is your biggest weakness. You have to find yourself a good woman today and hold on to her because you get into the hookup culture today and you're of any prominence as a man, you're a target.
Is it changed anything?
I mean, I think that one thing is to talk about sexual rights and one thing is to talk about sexual pleasure and experience. I think, I was teaching this course yesterday. I think it's about 97% of research on desire is about women. What does that say to you? That says that we think women have challenges around desire. Men don't have to be researched because the assumption is they're always interested. Just to give them an opportunity, which is so not true.
Yeah.
But the science is completely bought into the bias.
What's the difference, though? Why does it matter whether if all the research is? Are you getting different results from men and women?
No, because yes, the experiences are different. But what it says is that the science has decided that women need to be helped around desire.
Yeah.
That they have hyposexual desire disorder. Today it's that. In the past, it was the opposite that we were researching, and that men don't need to be researched because men don't have challenges around desire.
I agree with that. Men don't. It's very straightforward. TNA. Sorry, it's just what we see. There's a very small sliver of that goes into, the extra nuanced stuff that women can do that turns a man on even more. But in general, man, it's just like 90% visual, 10% the rest. For women, it's like the reverse. There is a strong visual component, obviously, Chad genetics and all that stuff, but so much of theirs is emotional. So much of theirs is by behavioral triggers and words and like warming up the oven and what you do beforehand and all that stuff that arouses them, that triggers arousal. A man is like triggered by arousal, simply boom, sees, wow, want it, there, done. That's why we don't really research it, because it's very simple in our brains as men that the scientists are like, well, yeah, dude, male arousal is very straightforward. Not much to be studied there. The nuances aren't going to give us any groundbreaking discoveries on what men find attractive. But women's are far more complex, far more interesting. And obviously men would want to know about that. Exactly.
And that is
my take.
First of all, it leaves many men unattended to. It puts an unfair burden onto the women. That is not about feminism. That is but science and political changes and social changes, they intersect with each other. Have women, changed fundamentally around the fact that, at least in the West, in most situations, hopefully, sex is no longer just a woman's marital duty, but that it is also about her desire, her pleasure, their connection together. That is huge. Yeah. I mean, we first separated sex from reproduction when we got contraception. Then we separated reproduction from sex when we got artificial ways to conceive. And now we are separated anatomy from gender. And those are huge revolutions that change the way we conceive of the relationship.
Regression.
We used to think sex elderly people, that is the weirdest thing possible. But when is elderly people start these days? I mean, we understand that there is a way to stay intimately, physically, sensually connected till the end of your life.
Are you having more and more couples come to you? And this is difficult, I guess, because maybe it's just more people talking about it now. But are you having more couples come to you that are experiencing problems in the bedroom? Sexlessness in their relationships?
Of course. But what does that mean, sexlessness? Because, in a relationship or in a culture where the woman's experience doesn't really matter, there may be sex, but that may be miserable sex.
Do you think there's a lot of miserable sex?
Of course. And when women don't have desire, is it really that they have less desire, or is it that they don't have desire for the sex they can have? In order to want sex, it needs to be sex that is worth wanting.
Well, I've said this before, but it's worth saying now again. My partner turned around to me one day and said, "I don't like having sex with you." And I was shocked. I was like, this was super early into our relationship. And as a very young man, I didn't understand what that meant. Very emasculated by it. I thought she must be broken in some way. There must be some kind of medical defect. Maybe she needs some pills or a doctor or something. We ended up breaking up. We spent a year apart. She ended up doing some work on herself. I did a little bit of work on myself. We got back together and went on a bit of a journey together to find out what the actual answer was. And it turns out it wasn't that she didn't like having sex or having sex with me. She very much enjoys sex, but there was a series of blockages. And I almost describe it like I thought sex was one language, Spanish. And it turns out she thought she was speaking French. And I just assumed because she wasn't speaking Spanish that we couldn't have sex, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point I started to view it as maybe there's 10 different languages or 5 different languages of sex. And maybe my job is to learn the language that she is speaking. And I have to say, and I give this conclusion because there's a lot of people that are in that situation right now. I know that because I'd say at one point about 20 to 40% of my friendship group we have a great sex life now. And I say that because I think couples often think they just can't turn it around. They think that when one partner turns and says, "I'm not enjoying this," they think it's the other person's broken. We managed to turn it around.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. And what is not said often enough is that when people are able to change this, it changes the whole relationship.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I said before. And I said, you can change the kitchen, but it won't change the bedroom. But when you change the bedroom, it changes the people who walk into the kitchen. And it's very, very important. But you need to do things. You can't talk about not having sex. Let me put it differently. It's difficult to want to have more sex by talking about not wanting to have sex.
That's such a big point, dude. This communication thing, I'm telling you, man, it's not how it works. Talking about your problems doesn't fix the problems, even though like therapists tell you all the time, go to couples therapy, go to marriage counseling. Let's talk about our problems. That changes nothing. The underlying issue is you. It's the other person. It's the actions you have together that are causing you to butt heads in a relationship. For example, relationship weight. You get together, you stop working out, you spend too much time together, you lose your individuality as people, and you mesh your lives together in one, because this is what they tell you should do, and then you get lost in the process, and the person loses their attraction towards you because of it. You're no longer the person they met. You're not independent. You're not a separate entity coming into this. You almost are like a leech. You latched onto this person or latch onto each other. You're draining each other's life force, man. It's not healthy. And this is how so many people end up in dead bedrooms. They stop trying. They stop being themselves or let themselves go, or whatever other manner it manifests in, where you don't even recognize who you are anymore. How many people say at the end of a bad breakup or a long relationship that ends, I couldn't recognize myself anymore. I didn't know who I was. I lost myself with her. I isolated myself from my friends. I stopped doing the things I love doing. I just only cater to her or whatever. That's what men's side say, and women say the same thing. This is what happens. And the other person gradually loses respect as you give more and more and more, which in turn takes more and more and more of your individuality. That other person loses love for you as that happens. People don't understand this. It's work to be in a relationship. The hard part is being together for a long time. It's not meeting and going on a date and impressing this person. That's the easy part. The initial couple of months of meeting somebody is the easiest part of your relationship. Then the work begins. That's when you have to keep grinding, keep improving, keep becoming better, keep getting more hobbies, become more interesting, learn new things. You have to stay fresh now for the person you're spending the rest of your life with. You can't stagnate. But the default in most relationships and why they fail is people stagnate, they get bored of one another, sex dries up really quickly, and now you're just hanging out because like sunk cost fallacy, you're just hanging on for dear life. Maybe we'll turn this around one day. Well, let's try therapy. Let's try couples counseling. Let's swap the whole kitchen out. And then none of that fixes it. And eventually, boom, you finally split. Whatever it is that broke the camel's back, that final straw, there it is. And now you finally split. And it's not until you undergo all this shit that you come out of this relationship looking in the mirror and you don't even recognize yourself. Whether you weigh more, weigh less, don't have any more of the friends you hung out, whatever it is, man, that change is on your shoulders. This is why I tell guys it's super important, dude. This is how you keep your woman. You always have to be improving. It doesn't matter. You always have to be Mr. Interesting. And you can never, ever break on your boundaries. This whole maintaining frame thing is literally everything. It underpins the foundation of your relationship. Your frame is what builds that pyramid up of all the other points of attraction. If your frame breaks, the entire thing becomes unstable because you change. I've told this story before, but I had an ex-girlfriend and we were driving down a random, I'll never forget this, dude. It like burned in my brain. She literally told me we had a stupid argument, something that as a man, you're not even mindful of that you're arguing. I'm just driving down the road. It's a dumb conversation that has no meaning or value in my life personally. But I supplicated in some manner in her eyes where I said, I'm sorry, my bad, I did that. Something of the nature. I had an apology or I apologized for whatever I did because I didn't give a shit. And she turned around to me shocked with a serious face and told me, wow, the guy I met would have never done that. You would have never let me get away with that. She, in that moment, man, was disgusted. I broke frame without even realizing it. Because my mind's on 100 different other things to do, get to this place, we have to be there at this time, blah, blah, blah. That I broke frame once. And she caught on to it right away and called me out on it. And that was one of that's not the beginning of the end, but I could tell you I had multiple frame breaks throughout that entire relationship that eventually ended it. And that could have been a good relationship that lasted, could have probably ended up married, could have had kids, could have had it all. But as a man, not understanding at the time, but looking back now, hindsight 2020, I know I had multiple frame breaks throughout this relationship that led to its undoing. And a lot of men are in this position. You start off strong, man. Once you convince a woman to get in a relationship with you, or I should say you meet a woman, you start hooking up, and then she says, what are we? That's your peak. That right there represents your highest value in her eyes and her lowest. The gap is massive. As you're in a relationship and you have multiple frame breaks, small, you don't even notice them. That gap closes. Eventually, you fall in the love category. I love her. And you treat her with respect. That's where you end up right here. This is super dangerous. Because now that you respect her finally, and you're treating her like a woman you love, instead of that side piece you were tapping until she finally asked you and you gave her a shot, that right there represents the danger zone. Now you're starting to act different. Now you're starting to break a lot of frame. I'll stop hanging out with the guys this weekend. She doesn't like that. I'll do what she says so we don't get in an argument. Oh, blah, 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 blah. And then it's like, by the end of the relationship, if you're to categorize your value and her value, and this works for married men, men in short-term relationships, long-term relationships, it doesn't matter. At the very end of a relationship, whether it was 3 months, 3 years, or 30, her value is here, your value is here. And that is why she thinks she can leave you and do better, because you're way down here in her eyes from frame breaks, from constant mistakes, from all the arguments you've been losing, because of all your behaviors that made her uncomfortable. Because the reason they say you got to be the rock in a relationship, that stability, because that comes from a source of strength, from a position of power, that she can emotionally crash like a wave into you and you never move, you never break, and you never budge. You're way up here. She's always down here. But the moment you become unstable emotionally, you argue, you fight back, you get goaded into arguments by her testing you constantly. finding chinks in your armor to see if you're still a man. She'll constantly pick fights with you. The little shit test, that's on purpose. Without her even realizing. It's an evolutionary thing that they do without even recognizing it to just maintain, like, are you a man? Are you a man? They're poking you. Are you a man still? Are you the man I met? Are you still a man? Can I trust you? Are you a man? Because they go through the emotional roller coaster and they have to make sure, hey, can this guy protect me? Will he take care of me? Is this guy going to abandon me or not? That's just their like insecurity and anxiety that just, it comes in waves. And you as a man have to be rock steady and pass all of the tests. Now, when you do your job and your due diligence as a man, you're truly that guy. You don't even have to think about this stuff. It just comes off naturally. But there's a bunch of us that are fake it till you make it types, or have never had the tools, being raised without a father or an overbearing mother or whatever it is that makes you over feminized as a man. You don't have those tools, and that creates anxiety in your relationship. Now your woman is starting to poke and prod more and more. The tests are getting more extreme because she's just trying to be reassured. I can count on him. I can depend on him. He won't abandon me, but you're failing all that. And then her anxiety rises, and then your relationship starts to deteriorate. And then you complain about all the things a bunch of men complain about. Why is she doing this to me? Because a man expects when he gets in a relationship that he's passed the test, that once she asks him to be hers, that he's done. I should be done with all the tests. I've already proven myself. No, you have to prove yourself until you're dead, until your last breath. This isn't a one-time thing. You pass the test once, boom, turn in your paper, I'm done, dude. Forever in my history, test passed. No, your proficiency keeps getting tested. Just like a doctor does every few years, he's got to retake classes. New knowledge comes out. New experiences happen in your relationship, and your proficiency must be tested. That's what it is. This is the whole nature of the beast right here. Once you can internalize this, that your proficiency as a man gets tested always, over and over, it's a completely natural thing. It's not personal. She's not doing it because she thinks less of you. She's doing it for the reasons of being a woman, simply biology. It's nature. Once you understand that, you stop taking it personal, and you understand what the pokes and the prods are, what they're looking for in this relationship, the feedback she's looking, all of this stops. Or at least you don't even notice them because you're hitting all the marks she's looking for before the testing even needs to happen. Like imagine you're walking down the street and you're going to get a coffee with your woman, and there's like 3-4 women that have checked you out. You can induce anxiety in your woman by simply saying hello, nodding your head, chatting up the barista. She seems super interested. Women are staring and you're staring back, right? Doing all that stuff without grabbing your woman's arm, without holding your woman's hand, without giving her a kiss on the cheek, without hugging her close, walking with her, arms locked together, stuff like that, right? Exerting your ownership over your woman, showing off that that's your woman, right? If you walk distant from one another, or she's in front of you or behind you, like out of sync like that, and you do all those things, you can induce anxiety in a woman. Now that same guy, quote, let's call him the Alpha Chad, he's got his arms locked with his woman, holding hands, giving her pecks, kisses, squeezing her ass, whatever, in public here and there, exerting his love, his affection, and his ownership of her. Women like that, especially in public. Why? Because you're showing everybody that's yours. She is mine, which makes her feel secure. So even if other women are looking at you and you walk by and there's another woman that's like really staring at you a long time, and women notice this, your girl will absolutely notice every single woman looking at you, and you bring her close and you give her a kiss, that completely crushes the anxiety. That's something you naturally like to do anyway, and the shit test gets averted. Now, if you do all the other stuff I told you, and then you get home, and then already from the car ride home, it's in her brain, wow, all these women were looking at him. Why doesn't he walk with me in line? He didn't even hold my hand when we went into the coffee shop. He was talking to that girl a little longer than normal. Was he flirting with her? Does he not love me? All this crazy shit goes in their head. And then boom, you have a little fight that happens at home. It starts off with like, do I look good in this dress? Or what'd you think about my hair? Or did you see how that barista was hitting on you? And if you don't answer that question exactly how she wants it answered to get rid of that anxiety and abandonment feeling, that's boom. You just had a blow up argument right then and there. And this power dynamic is where the shift happens. There's a lot of nuances, man. A lot of this stuff can be avoided. You just have to learn it from top down. And once you learn it once, you understand that it's all behavioral and it mostly runs on autopilot for you when you do the due diligence of being, quote, a man's man. When you're a real man, when women say, I'm looking for a real man, that's that guy that they're picturing in their head, that guy that does all those things right, where she doesn't even have to think. She doesn't even have to feel all those crazy emotions. There is no more anxiety. She just sees other women looking after you. Competition anxiety is there because it just always is, but she is secure in her relationship, which makes her want to do more, be more acrobatic in bed, serve you more, please you more, support you more, because she wants to hold on to you. You do all that stuff wrong, you get the combativeness, the fighting, the ghosting, the arguing. Then she's going to go and cheat. And then, as a form of like, oh my God, he's probably cheating on me. I can't hold on to this guy, blah, blah. And then it blows up in the whole other direction. Instead of having like the perfect girlfriend or the perfect wife, you have like a nightmare wife and a nightmare girlfriend. That's how this stuff happens.
Thanks.
Yeah.
You have to try new things.
Yeah.
And that means you take chances, you risk, you explore together. And when it doesn't work, you try something else. And that is what people often find really challenging. They'd rather take it as a criticism, and then they are defensive, and then they counterattack. And then you say to her, there's something wrong with you, etc., etc.
Do you know what really I struggled with was that first day when I tried to initiate sex and then I basically got rejected. That created this almost anxiety going forward. And then there was maybe about a year, not even a year, maybe less than that, I don't know, 6 months, where if I'd like tried to initiate sex, I'd be like rejected. And that kind of just totally turned me off. And it was, even when we fixed the situation, I almost had to do a lot of work on myself because then she starts initiating all the time when we get out of the other end of the situation, when we resolve it. And then that's basically a problem, because I've learned this habit that she has to initiate sex now, because there was this periods for 6 months where I was just rejected all the time. And that was difficult, because I tell you what, when you've got to get an erection, the last thing you want to be doing is thinking. Am I going to be rejected? Does she want to have it to, it's the last thing you want to be thinking.
So this fear of rejection is probably one of the most important emotional or sexual vulnerabilities for many men. It's part of what is so alluring in porn, by the way. You're never rejected in porn. She never says not now. She always says me too, more. And that takes care of one of the very important sexual vulnerabilities that many men grapple with. By the way, the next one would be you're also never incompetent. You never have performance anxiety. It doesn't matter. Whatever you do, it's for you. So that takes care of the second vulnerability. And the third one is that you never have to wonder, is she enjoying it? Because she only screams and makes sure that she lets whoever the actor is know how phenomenal he is. So.
And also, you've searched out the fantasy that you want. So you're getting...
Absolutely.
There's no rejection in the fantasy.
So it's a very interesting thing when you look at what does porn do for many men, is it takes care of 3 major emotional dilemmas around sex. It's not that it just takes care of the sex. It takes care of the vulnerabilities, the emotional vulnerabilities around sex. That's a real different way of understanding when you say to people, what are you looking at?
Are you not concerned that with artificial intelligence on the way in virtual reality, that we're literally, if porn is taking care of those vulnerabilities that are standing in the way of many men?
So will bots.
Yeah, exactly.
So will machines, ever more so.
A machine, I put a headset on, I buy the machine on the internet, and then it can talk to me.
And I have an augmented reality, and they never say no, and they know exactly what I like, and they accompany me everywhere. And I don't have to feel like I want too much or too little, or I'm doing it wrong or anything. Yeah, absolutely. It's a fantastic, idealistic world in which one can enter. Scary and understandable.
Especially as people are getting lonelier. They'll see that as a substitute for the real thing. Maybe a better substitute for the real thing in some people's minds.
Yes. Those who will seek it out will want to believe that it is a good substitute.
You look concerned.
It's a world that I don't know yet, that I'm watching. When I say I don't know yet, I know plenty, but there are things that are changing where I say, I'm excited. This is phenomenal. And then there are things that are changing that I'm saying, where is this taking us? And I'm a lot more cautious. And this is one of them.
When couples do come to you with
population collapse on scales we've never thought possible, AI and sex bots and all this stuff and augmented reality is going to create a world for people where they don't have to try in reality anymore. You could get served up your perfect girlfriend. Now, this is mostly going to hit initially for sure. The crowd they love to call incels, the dudes that can't get laid, the very bottom rungs of society that feel invisible to women. Of course, they're going to gravitate towards this because it's better than just your hand. It's better than just traditional adult entertainment. You have something that's interactive. But that's a double-edged sword because while you fix one issue, it's going to create another one. And the other issue is you're going to dig yourself into a hole you'll never get out of. Once you indulge in that stuff, you're lost. You're gone. You'll never have a physical relationship. You'll never even come across one, potentially. You'll never do the due diligence on yourself because you're never going to compete for mates. You're never going to have to work. You're never going to have to pick up weights or go running or build up your body. And we could say, just do this for your own health, bro. You forget the women. No, they won't do this for the women. They won't even do this for themselves. They're going to sit on the couch, balloon up on their computer screens to 400 pounds and put the VR headset on and get told how big and beautiful men they are by these fake bots, lines of code that will charge you infinitely more money to talk to you in dirty and dirtier ways or unlock adult entertainment. Or, you have to request 50 bits. 50 coins to get her to do this act for you. That's how they're going to monetize this stuff. It's all about making money. It's not about curing your loneliness. The people that are using it think it cures their loneliness, but all it is a trap. It's feeding you a drug, one you don't need. When you think you want it, then you think you need it, but all it's going to do is trap you in to becoming dependent on it forever. Instead of improving yourself, instead of going out and meeting people, instead of becoming a more interesting person, socializing more, putting yourself out there, all the things people used to do to meet other people, there will be zero need for it. You can log in to your AI girlfriend, and that's that. All your whims, desires, needs, all will be taken care of within your smart house, everything. Chalk up a little hologram or that Apple glass that's coming out, the VR headset where you could see everything in 3D space. And wow, you got yourself the perfect 10 model that looks after you and tells you everything you want to hear. That will destroy a man's motivation, a man's need for anything in the physical world. Boy, oh boy, that's going to be a scary one because we've already seen what happens. Look at all the clinics that have opened up not too long ago where it's helping men with, for example, video game addiction, right? Think about that as a digital world that a man indulges in and loses himself in. So much so that a good portion of the population is addicted by definition. They play way too many hours. It's affecting their schoolwork, their careers, and their relationships. So imagine now when you introduce sex as part of that equation, when you introduce intimacy, when you introduce a relationship, right? Feeling wanted, because games are just they're low on that excitement level for a man in terms of like conquest, right? Or war or whatever it is, raids, driving at high speeds, whatever that game is trying to replicate from the real world. It's doing it at such a poor level. I mean, the graphics have improved, but it's like driving a fast car in a Need for Speed game, cool, bro. Playing Call of Duty and dropping in a war zone and shooting people, cool, bro. It's still it's like a little twinge of dopamine that's getting hit compared to what adult entertainment does and compared to what a VR girlfriend could do one day. It doesn't even come close. Imagine the level of addiction we're going to have for a huge proportion of the population. You think single and loneliness hurts now? You think it's exploded now on the scene? You have no idea. We still have real world incentives to get better. There's still, you need to improve, bro. You need to lift, bro. To get a girl, you need to do this. Oh, got to go overseas, get a passport, get yourself. That's all going to be second best, a distant second to that perfect AI girlfriend. And the people that are going to invent that thing are going to make billions, hundreds of billions of dollars. The guys at the bottom, once this becomes reality, and it's something you could easily purchase and get Amazon next day to your house, those guys are in a lot of trouble, man. It's a very tempting carrot to go reach after. And especially when you don't have the mental tools, when you've been feminized and you're dependent and coping and avoiding reality, that is going to be the most incredible drug that you could possibly take. Endless supply of dopamine for zero effort, zero work. You don't have to do anything. That is going to be some curious times. I'm seriously following that stuff. And I can tell you right now, it's not going to be good. There's already guys in the comment sections that say they can't wait for the AI robot girlfriends. Careful what you wish for, my friend. Oh, yep. Anywho, here's what your thoughts are on all this. See you guys on the next one.